The sun beat down, sweltering hot, as dust filled the air. A young tribune rises off the ground, and as far as his eyes can see, nothing but rivers of blood covering the dead and dying. Screams fill the air as the call of the crows and vultures usher in the realization of how badly this tribune's compatriots were annihilated on this day. This day being August 2nd, 216 BC, the place where both Paulus and Varro entered the afterlife. History will forever remember it as the Battle of Cannae. But the young tribune, Publius Cornelius Scipio, remembers the tactics he witnessed Hannibal employ in this latest rout of the Roman legions. Scipio, although injured, makes it to Canusium, where he rallied some 4,000 plus troops who survived the battle to stay the course and to follow him to Rome. This was not Scipio's first bout with the legendary Hannibal of Carthage. Scipio saved his father some years earlier from Hannibal's Numidian cavalry at the Battle of the Ticinus. And Scipio vows it will not be the last time he faces Hannibal. Though under the legal age in 213 BC, Rome gives Scipio public office as an aedile. Soon after, though, disaster strikes when Scipio's father and uncle were killed in Spain by Hasdrubal and his army. Scipio was given a command in Spain, the first Roman given command outside of Rome without being praetor or consul. The Romans were giving Scipio a chance to avenge his father and uncle's death. Scipio trains his legions using tactics of his rival while adding his own flair to the mix. And in 209 BC, Scipio and his legions stormed Carthago Nova, taking it and its vast supplies for himself and Rome. Using his newly acquired city as a base of operations, Scipio pushed even farther south with his newly trained yet battle-hardened legions. He faced Hasdrubal Barca at Baetica in 208 BC, where Scipio divided his army, hitting the Carthaginians in the flanks, completely surprising Hasdrubal and driving him from the field of battle and routing the Carthaginian army he commanded. Then Scipio expressed his true brilliance at the Battle of Ilipa, when he lulled the Carthaginian army into a sense of routine by doing the same task day to day. Hasdrubal and Mago were completely surprised the day Scipio attacked. They didn't anticipate Scipio's tactical prowess and ability to change objectives and tactics mid-stride. Arranging his legions to face the weakest areas of the Carthaginian army, coupled with his audacious flanking maneuvers, was more than Hasdrubal and Mago could handle, eventually routing them from the field of battle as they retreated. Scipio then claimed Gades as a Roman town in Iberia, thus taking most of Hispania for Rome. Scipio's next move was not to go after Hannibal, but have Hannibal come after him. Scipio's plan was to move legions into North Africa to drop the hammer on Carthage proper. Scipio drills his legions with new tactics and acquired a new ally in a Numidian cavalry. Publius Scipio had driven the Carthaginians from the Iberian Peninsula, now to save Italy and Rome herself. In 204 BC, Scipio persuaded the Roman Senate to allow him to lead a Roman army to North Africa. Scipio crossed the Med, established a beachhead, and won his first battle of the North African campaign only 20 miles from Carthage by 203 BC. At the same time, Hannibal was called back to defend Carthage, and he came as fast as possible. Hannibal crossed the Mediterranean with 37,000 troops, heading straight for the approaches to Carthage. Scipio had marched up the Beiratus River, seeking a decisive battle to end this war. Many of Scipio's legionaries had served Rome at the Battle of Cannae and were itching for vengeance. Both armies met near Zama, with both armies numbering about the same number of troops, somewhere around 40,000, and about 6 to 7,000 cavalry, though Scipio's cavalry was more battle-hardened and he had Numidian cavalry in his ranks this time. As he slowly trots his horse across the soon-to-be killing field of Zama, Scipio thinks back to that nightmare at Cannae, which seemed like so long ago. He wonders if this field will be somewhat of the same. As he looks across, he sees his adversary and greatest teacher come into view, steadily riding toward middle ground where they will meet face to face. Scipio ponders if he up to the task of facing Hannibal, the Annihilator. The one general Scipio knows he has to meet, the one general Scipio knows he has to beat. Little is known of this meeting of the two greatest commanders of all time, but it's believed Hannibal sued for some type of negotiations and also complimented Scipio, saying, "You are where I was at the Battle of Trebia and Cannae," while Scipio responded saying, "Prepare for battle, Hannibal, for you find peace intolerable." And then they moved back to their armies, getting prepared for the battle to commence. The next morning, both armies arrayed onto the field of battle. Scipio had formed many maniples, with the maniples being maneuverable to dodge potential war elephants, and he also incorporated men with horns and drums to disorient and scare these would-be war elephants. The battle started with many elephants storming down on the Roman legions. The maniples stepped aside and the elephants were actually disoriented by the horns, and many elephants wheeled around and decimated their own Carthaginian ranks. Scipio sent his cavalry to hit the flanks of the Carthaginian cavalry. Then he initialized Scipio's infantry heading into Hannibal's center lines, where they met. Fighting was fierce, but Hannibal's infantry started getting the best of Scipio's in the middle. Scipio tried to flank Hannibal using his own tactics against Hannibal, but Hannibal blocked by widening his lines. Then Scipio added a twist when he had the Numidian cavalry slam into the back of Hannibal's army. The end was upon them then, as the Roman infantry and cavalry decimated Hannibal's army, who were green mostly, facing battle-hardened Romans, and this caused Hannibal to retreat, and he eventually fled to Greece in exile. Carthage had no choice but to surrender to Scipio on his terms, which were lenient, even lenient on Hannibal, which upset many Romans. As Scipio looks across Carthage and towards the white caps of the Mediterranean, he smiles as he realizes he has avenged his father and uncle's deaths at Carthage's hands. He says a small prayer to all his comrades he saw dead and dying not so long ago at the Battle of Cannae. The subjugation of Carthage ended the Second Punic War, and Scipio thus earned the title Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. Scipio returned to Rome, where he was denied a triumph due to he was a privatus, never holding the rank of praetor or consul. Scipio finally gained consulship in 205 BC, where he was given Sicily with the opportunity to go into Africa as he pleases. Scipio always had a traditional attitude towards his adversaries, where he was usually lenient to his foes, especially those he admired. In 199, Scipio became censor and princeps senatus. He was re-elected in 194 BC to a consulship, and in 190 BC, Scipio had become senator. But he was challenged in the Senate to produce his books, though his books showed nothing illegal. Many senators were jealous of Scipio's influence and fame, Cato the Elder being the worst of the bunch. Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus was not only one of Rome's greatest, but one of the all-time great commanders. And Hannibal himself corroborates this. Scipio was a Roman commissioner after Antiochus III was defeated in the Seleucid War. Scipio ran across Hannibal, who was exiled in Greece. These two goats, so to speak, talked about many things. One of note was Scipio asked Hannibal who was the greatest military commander. Hannibal exclaimed Alexander the Great. Hannibal was then asked who was second. He exclaimed Pyrrhus. When Scipio asked who was the third, Hannibal said, myself, of course. Scipio smiled. What if you had defeated me at Zama? Hannibal replied, in that case, I would be number one, far above Alexander and Pyrrhus, because I hold you in a whole different light than any other worldly commander. Scipio was honored and happy to be considered that by Hannibal, a commander apart from ordinary general and commanders, and one of the greatest commanders in history.